Yeah, that I think really is why your program spoke to me so much is, this isn't a diet. This is just a lifestyle change.
Hey, how is it going? It is your muscle building coach, Lee Hayward here. And today I have the opportunity to chat to one of my coaching students, Steve Patterson. And he has been part of the Muscle After 40 blueprint for the past 6 months. And he's made some amazing progress. And I wanted to have Steve come on and just share the journey of where he was and how he's made this incredible transformation over the past 6 months during COVID lockdown, during all the restrictions. And we'll get into that. I mean, like, in a time when most people are using this as an excuse to let themselves go and gain weight and get out of shape and just say the hell with it, screw it. Steve has done the exact opposite. He's been an action taker, use this as an opportunity to get in shape, and I have a ton of respect for him for doing that. And again, I just want to share that story with you here today. So, Steve, welcome to the conversation. We're chatting now virtually through Zoom, and it's nice to share this. I mean, you've came on board 6 months ago, and I've been blown away with the progress you made. I really am. It's better than average. Put it that way.
Oh, thanks very much, Lee. And I don't doubt at all that when we first spoke, and I said, yeah, well, I can do this. I'm sure that you didn't believe for a second that I was going to take it as seriously as I have been. The one good thing about COVID is it's allowed a hell of a lot of time to spend some time working out because there's not a hell of a lot else to be done in Ontario for the last while.
Yeah, so we should mention that, Steve, you're from Ontario, Canada, and what's the situation like? I know I see it on the news, but I mean that's one of the hardest hit areas in Canada right now with the whole COVID situation. So I mean, like, what's it like living through that now?
Well, we've been yo-yoing in and out of lockdowns and stay-at-home orders for 13, almost 14 months now. Of course, March of last year, same as everybody else, everything got shut down. Nobody could do anything. We were allowed a brief respite during the summer when we were allowed to get out and do things, and that was sort of when I took advantage of things and decided that, well, the wife and I were going to take the plunge and buy a piece of property that I'd been thinking about buying for years. And that was what led me to actually going out and discovering just how out of shape I was. After that, everything got locked down again. So I guess probably August, September, lockdown started. Nothing was allowed to open. More stay-at-home orders come later in the fall. So from Boxing Day on, everything outside of Toronto, everything was locked down. Things had been locked down in Toronto for a couple of weeks prior to that. Then just Easter, I guess, and still going. We've been locked down with a stay-at-home order again. Just recently, they have done a fair amount of back and forth as far as whether or not people were even allowed to visit parks or not. But yeah, it's certainly not a lot of opportunity to do a hell of a lot at this point.
This is a time when a lot of people have neglected their health and fitness, given to junk food, alcohol, television, whatever, anything to distract themselves through this whole lockdown process. And I mean, I understand that this whole COVID weight gain, I mean, that's a real thing. It really is. I see it all the time. Friends, family, neighbors, just people are gaining weight. So I respect the fact that you've done the opposite. You've actually used this as an opportunity to prioritize your health and fitness. And I know back, was it in October, I believe it was, you came on
Yeah,
board with the Lose Your Gut Challenge?
yeah,
That's how
it
you started.
was
You did the
October of
free,
last year.
right? You did the
Yep.
free 5-day Lose Your Gut Challenge. And that was kind of like the whole introduction, to the Muscle After 40 blueprint and this program that we've got going on. And afterwards we had a conversation and you said that you wanted to give this a go. And like, just share, like, where were you back then in October and what was your motivation for wanting to come on board with this?
As far as where I was not in a good spot. My weight was just over 260, heaviest I have ever been in my life. This was after 3 years of some very, very stressful things going on in my home life. I had actually, prior to that, done it on my own and lost a fair amount of weight, but things went to crap. And, 3 years later, 260, feeling like absolute death warmed over all the time. Major psoriasis, massive drinking problem, was really not in a good way. Joints were so bad that I was having trouble walking. was hard getting out of bed in the morning. So, throw in COVID on top of that. And, I freely admit, although I'm lucky in that I'm one of the ones that's able to work from home and have been working through all this, you get the isolation. There's only so much you and the wife can say to each other before you sort of run out of topics and you're trying to find more stuff to talk about because what do you say other than, yep, still locked down. Like I say, we sort of took the plunge. We bought a piece of property. And when I went out there, was out there on my own. It's an isolated bush property. There's not really anything around, no roads getting in. So getting in was a case of driving in on an ATV in order to get to the property. Got there. This was probably August during the middle of a heat wave. So temperatures up around 35 plus humidity, maybe a bit more. Absolutely melting. And of course, 260 pounds in that kind of heat is not fun to begin with. So hiking through all this and getting eaten alive, melting, figure, okay, well, I'll get out of the property and get myself cooled off, sort of take a couple of days to figure out what I want to do next, which was great right up until the point that I got stuck in a marsh. So Northern Ontario, which is where the property is, what we've got a lot of is muskeg. So swamp, lots and lots and lots of swamp. Going out through the trails and got stuck in it. So was up to the bumpers on the ATV in mud, could not get out. 5 kilometers or more away from the nearest road. It's not like you can actually get somebody to come and tow you out. Don't know anybody in the area because, of course, brand new to the area. So ended up hiking out in 35-degree heat and humidity at 260 pounds.
Holy
At that point, having finally got back to my Jeep, having left everything behind, decided I never want to do this again. So started playing a little bit when I got home to start, trying to get myself moving again, trying to get myself motivated. Been following your stuff for years on and off on YouTube and Facebook. So when you posted the challenge, thought, you know what, maybe this will do it finally. And it's funny because what really spoke to me, because, keep in mind, I'm still knocking back a liter or more of whiskey a week. And what really did it was when you posted in your challenge, no alcohol, it's only 5 days.
I remember that. Yeah.
And I said, you know what? Hell with it. It's only 5 days. Got through day 1, got through day 2, got through day 3. And it's like, you know what? It's only 5 days. I can do this.
Yeah.
And just, listening to you talk, listening to the information, being around a whole bunch of people that were going through the same thing I was and trying to do something about it really made a hell of a difference because it really helped deal with some of that isolation. You know what? No, I'm not the only one who's let myself go this far. There's lots of other people that have let themselves go that way, but here's, other people like Paul and such that have not only let themselves go, but have done so much to get themselves back together that, hey, I can do it too. Why the hell not?
Right.
And that was sort of the start. And we did our coaching call, and well, now 6 months later, weighed in this morning at 186. So over 70 pounds since then.
Wow.
If I ever managed to actually get out of the house, have no doubt at all that I'll actually be in the shape to get up there and enjoy myself, which is really what my goal was and what my motivation was to stop feeling like crap and actually, be able to enjoy the property that I wanted for my whole bloody life.
Holy smoke, Steve. So I wasn't even giving you justice there. I said 60 pounds. So you started at 260. And what did you say you were this morning? 180?
186 this morning.
Holy mo! I mean, that's incredible. That is really incredible. And if you have achieved that in like a year or 2 years, I would still say that's incredible. That's solid progress. But I mean, this hasn't even been a full year, and you've lost that much weight, and not going to the gym, from home. I mean, that's why it's like you're against the odds here, and that's what I have so much respect for. So I know people are probably wondering, what the heck did you do? So let's just cover some of the basic things that you did. I mean, as far as your exercise, I mean, obviously there's no gym. So what did you do there?
In all honesty, the exercise it has been two really simple things. Got my hands on a used treadmill there during the summer, and of course didn't use it. It was great for hanging laundry on, but once the challenge started, I actually started using the treadmill.
Hmm.
Typically, started off, 15, 20 minutes on it, just to get myself used to it. And then, now I'm typically going anywhere from, it's generally half an hour to an hour and a quarter on the treadmill. And
Okay.
that's 3 to 4 times a week just on cardio days. Just started adding a backpack to it just for some extra weight. So I'm getting used to carrying stuff for hiking.
Right.
So
Okay.
doing lots of that, walking outside when I'm able to and the weather's half decent.
Hmm.
Beyond that, found once again a used Bowflex years ago, and
Nice. Hmm.
no, it's one of the crappier ones, but it's small enough to fit in my basement without taking out the ceiling. So,
Is it the
it
one with the
does.
power rods?
Yeah, it's the one with the
Yeah.
power rods, and of course,
Hmm.
well, the power rods are not so powerful anymore, but there's enough resistance there that at least I know I'm doing something. That I use for the basic resistance workouts, plus just dumbbells and the resistance bands. So pretty much just follow the routine you gave me originally, and
Right.
well, it's working.
So it's not an overly complicated situation here. I mean, like consistent with the cardio, consistent with the strength training. So as far as the nutrition, I mean, this is a huge piece of the puzzle when it comes
Yeah.
to losing body fat. Like if we're looking at everything in proportion, nutrition is the biggest piece of the puzzle. Nutrition and lifestyle choices. But one thing I found, and this is with myself and with a lot of coaching students that I work with over the years, it's hard to do it in isolation. So, like, let's say, okay, nutrition is the biggest piece of the puzzle. Well, I'll just do the nutrition side. But I find like that doesn't really work. You need to have both because I find when I'm exercising, that gives me the motivation to follow the nutrition. And then vice versa, by following healthy nutrition, it gives me motivation to exercise. So I find that both of them are very complementary. What's some of the biggest nutritional changes that you made? I mean, I know the lose your gut challenge, the alcohol you mentioned, only the 5 days, but what are some other things that you've changed?
Biggest thing really was the portion controls, once again, that you talked about in the challenge.
Mhm.
Typically, it wasn't just a case of, okay, not eating right. We were typically eating the right stuff most of the time, but it was, the second portion and the third portion of the
Right.
right stuff all the time, combined with, okay, well, what I found a big thing was when I was drinking, well, you drink, I tend to find that you like junk food. So
Mhm.
it's not a couple of chips, it's a bag of chips. It's not a couple of cookies, it's a whole bag of cookies. Lots and lots and lots of crap like that. The alcohol now is, maybe once or twice a month when I happen to feel like it. It's no longer a need at all.
Wow.
But the big thing with the nutrition really has been sort of following the advice you gave, and rather than trying to find really weird and wacky stuff, it's really just sort of going back to the regular sort of meat and potatoes kind of stuff, but keeping the portions under control, filling up more on the vegetables and on the starches,
Yeah.
sticking to one portion, not a meal followed by a meal followed by a meal.
Mhm.
The other really huge thing is I typically went all day without eating. Like typically when I've been in the office, it's get up, race my arse into work, carry on for the day. Normally don't take lunch, or if I do, it's run out to one of the local restaurants and grab whatever they happen to have, then come home absolutely starving and start binge eating for the rest of the evening. One advantage I've had with working from home for the last year is actually having the opportunity to do the prep that you recommended.
Yeah.
I prep typically, 3 to 5 days worth of breakfasts during
Okay.
the week.
Hmm.
And, that's just yogurt, granola, and protein powder. So nothing exciting, but it's enough to sort of fill you up for the morning.
Right.
Eating a proper lunch, and lunch is typically, wrapped salad, something like that, nutritious, gives some protein, a fair amount of veg, and some
Yep.
carbs to sort of fill you up a little bit, then a
Yep.
meal, and then a snack in the evening. I think that the huge difference there really is the fact that I am eating through the day as opposed to, yeah, it's funny, they talk about fasting. Well, basically, I was fasting most of the day and then
Right.
making up for it and then some all evening. Sort of moderate portions throughout the day has really made a huge difference because I'm not finding myself miserable all the time or starving all the time. My blood sugar isn't completely out of control, so I'm not snarling it and snapping at everybody all the time. It's a lot easier to do something when you're enjoying it or at the very least, you're not miserable, which is what so
Mhm.
many of these diets do.
And I've noticed the same thing myself because this is a very popular diet trend. Like you search for weight loss information, you're bound to see intermittent fasting pop up there. That can work initially, and I've went through it myself. I've experimented with intermittent fasting, and initially it did work. But what often happens is, like you said, your appetite starts to increase. And then, okay, you get through all day without eating. But then once you start eating, it's like opening up the floodgates and there's no satisfying it. A big thing I always found was once I started eating, it gave me the internal justification. Well, I haven't eaten anything all day, so I mean, yeah, I can eat the chips, or I can have some cookies, or I can have a slice of pizza. After all, I've been fasting all day. I deserve that at the end of the day, and you end up making worse food choices and ultimately not achieving that calorie deficit that we need to lose body fat. So
Yeah.
I've tried it, and it's never worked for me as a sustainable fat loss approach. Some people say it works, and if it does, hey, more power to you. Keep doing it, but I like the sustainable, just that well balanced approach that you're following. That's very similar to what I do myself. It's enjoyable. You don't feel like you're starving or miserable throughout the day. You just have that sustained energy. Another thing I respect as well is you mentioned, like, you drastically reduced your alcohol consumption, right?
Mhm.
But you haven't eliminated it.
No, and I've got you to thank for that.
Hmm.
I remember when I had just started with the program, and you and I were sort of firing messages back and
Yep.
forth, and I made the comment about really, really wanting a drink and struggling.
Hmm.
And I think your response was something along the lines of, "So have one, just only have one." And I did,
Hmm.
and that was enough to stop the craving. So fine, went a while, started to crave one, and had one, and that was it. And instead of it being two or three or four more drinks every bloody night, it ended up being one every couple of days or one a week, and that was one every couple of weeks.
Right.
And now it's just okay, if I happen to have one, I happen to want one, I have one.
Hmm.
But realistically, the craving and the need for one is long since gone. If anything else, I think the exercise has probably become the substitute for it, because I
Right.
find if I'm doing the exercise, well, that does an awful lot to deal with the stress, and I don't really find I'm craving any of the rest of it.
You've replaced the stress relief of the alcohol with the stress relief of regular exercise, and man, I have so much respect for that. That's incredible. And the reason why I mentioned that, like, don't avoid the alcohol, and this applies to any craving. It could be a junk food craving you have, heck, even if it's smoking, anything, like any craving that you have, it's like your vice, if you will. Like, oh, I gotta have a drink, I gotta have a cookie, I gotta have a cigarette. Instead of thinking of avoiding it entirely, like I'm not allowed to have that, think of moderating it. And this is something that I've kind of learned through trial and error, but I've really noticed it with becoming a father. Right, I've got a 4-year-old son now, and what I've noticed when it comes to children, if you tell a child they can't do something, they want to do it even more. You tell them, hey, don't touch that thing on the shelf. They're going over and touching that thing on the shelf. Instead of it, you just distract it with something else. In your case, you're distracting it with the exercise. But when it comes to the junk food, what I've come to do is I don't cut it out. Is if I'm craving something, like I'm craving a cookie or I'm craving a slice of pizza, I will have it. I will have the cookie, get the craving out of the system, then I can forget about it and move on.
Mm.
Whereas in the past, when I would be on the hardcore bodybuilding cutting diets, and I've shared this before, like I would go on 12 to 16 weeks of like boiled chicken and broccoli, just extreme approach, thinking I got to go on this cut. And there was no cheat meals. And all the time, those cravings are building up and building up. But the only thing that kept me on track was saying, there's the finish line, right? Like whatever date the show is in 3 months' time. Once that date's there, then I can eat whatever the heck I want. And I would eat whatever the heck I want in massive portions. But that was what kept me on track, is knowing that. But there's no deadline. Like health and fitness for life, it's a lifestyle. This isn't like a start and finish, like I'm going to diet for 3 weeks or 3 months and then it's over. No, it's this is what you do day in, day out for the rest of your life. So you need a different approach. You can't have that deprivation approach. So what I take now is this idea of, if I'm craving something, I want to satisfy it, like nip that craving in the bud so I can forget about it and move on. and continue on without obsessing over it and have that craving build.
Mhm.
Because that's what often happens is people say, no, I can't have a drink, or I can't have a cookie, or I can't have a pizza. And it builds and it builds and it builds. You might get a few weeks, might even get a couple months or whatever. You might go a long time depending on your level of willpower. But once you hit that threshold, and everybody has their threshold, I don't care how disciplined you are. Like, and once they hit that threshold, then all hell breaks loose. And then you're going to go binge and blow it. And once that happens, it's like, I screw it, I binge, I cheated again. And next thing you know, you're back to square one. All those positive habits that you were building, it just comes crumbling back down. So learn to manage those cravings like you've done. And it's just amazing. And I find like when there's no restriction, you actually want it less. Like
Yeah.
you can have a drink anytime you want. Like there's nobody saying you're not allowed. Like I can go order a pizza or have a cookie or buy a box of donuts anytime I want, but I just choose not to because I know the after effect of that is not going to make me feel good.
Yeah.
Whereas eating healthy and exercising, that does make me feel good. It's like makes me feel good long term. Whereas the junk food or the alcohol, well, it feels good in the moment, but it doesn't usually feel good the next day.
Yeah. Well, and that's just it. Like we had takeout last night,
Okay.
and because why not? This is the
Yeah.
thing. It was the first time we'd had it in probably 2 or 3 weeks, and it was planned for. There was plenty of deficit there in the calories and to
Mhm.
accommodate it, and didn't get silly about it. Had a burger, avoided the fries and the drinks, but that was it. So we get what we want, cravings dealt with, and move on.
And get back on track, right?
Yep.
Like don't obsess over it because that's another thing. Like a lot of people have that strict mentality where I'm going to be on the diet, and as soon as they blow the diet, they have the burger, they have the fries, they pizza, whatever. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I blew the diet, and they beat themselves up emotionally,
Mhm.
and they create stress over really nothing. Like who cares? It's a burger. Like enjoy the burger, move on, get
Yeah.
back on track.
Well, and even at that, when you're planning for it and you know what you're doing, it really
Yep.
doesn't matter that much because, okay, yeah, I had a burger yesterday, but I also ran a deficit of 500 calories anyway because I
Right.
accommodated it through the day with the other stuff. I had a
Nice.
salad at lunch instead of having a wrap. Therefore,
Made
balance
room
is
for the
it.
burger. Yeah, that's perfect. I love how you're planning it in advance. But even if it wasn't planned in advance, like in the greater scheme of things, you just need to be good enough, but good enough consistently. It doesn't have to be extreme, all or nothing perfection. Right. It's like running a business. Like if you're running a business, you don't have to turn a profit every single day to have a successful business. You just have to
Mhm.
turn a profit most days, more profitable days than days of loss, if you will. Same applies when it comes to burning body fat and having that calorie deficit. You don't need a deficit every day. It's just tip the scale so there's more deficit days, more good days than bad, and then
Mhm.
you can still make progress. And it's once you get it, and I don't mean get it up here like, oh, I intellectually know it and understand it. But once you get it, as in like yourself, you're living it. This is your new lifestyle, and you're seeing the results. I mean, heck, 186 pounds, that kind of results. Now you know it. Like you know this on an internal level, whereas like the 260-pound Steve, like, okay, it makes sense. Yeah, I understand how it works, but now you know it on a different level. That's the difference, right? Between knowing it intellectually and knowing it internally. And that's what we want. We want people to know this internally where they're not just seeing somebody else achieve it or understand it on paper, but understand it like, wow, this is what it feels like. I mean, when was the last time you were this weight?
In all honesty, the last time I was this weight was 3 years ago after I had busted my ass
Okay.
for 2 years
Hmm.
trying to lose, 40 or 50 pounds. So, 3 years almost to the day now was when everything went total crap. And
Yep.
that 80 pounds I put on, that was in 2.5 years.
Wow, that's a lot of weight gain in a short period of time.
Yeah, that was a lot of stress and a lot of booze in a really short period of time.
Wow. So Steve, like, I'm just curious, what did you do to lose the weight 3 years ago, and like, how does that differ from what you're doing now?
The difference, in all honesty, was the yo-yo diet. It's funny, you talk about willpower
Yep.
and the chicken and broccoli. I can relate to that because it was plain chicken breast and plain yogurt as pretty much every meal for at least a year,
Whoa.
going from about 230 down to 182 was where I was at when the
Hmm.
plug got pulled, shall we say. And yeah, willpower at that point went totally out the window. So it was 2 to 3 hours of exercise every single day, plus almost pure protein diet, hardly any carbs at all. And it was miserable.
That's basically a bodybuilding cutting diet. Like that's
Yep.
what a body, I guess that's where you kind of modeled that from, is you see
Yep.
what bodybuilders do. And the thing is, from the outside looking in, if we had have looked at your before and afters, people would look at that and say, well, man, look at the success story. But then a year after that, or 2 years after that, or whatever, you're back to square one, heavier than ever, more
Mhm.
frustrated and pissed off. And it's like, what's the point of even putting yourself through that to begin with if you're only going to regain it all back?
Yeah, that I think really is why your program spoke to me so much. Is this isn't a diet. This is just a lifestyle change.
I love that. And that's something that I keep emphasizing. It's not just like here's the macros and here's the sets and reps and like if that was all it was, like giving you the ideal macro count and here's the sets and reps, like everybody be in shape. Because we can go on Google, we can go on YouTube, I can type in workout diet plan and every workout from the beginning of time and every diet from the beginning of time is up there on Google and YouTube and wherever. But it's not the tactics. It's how do you take those tactics and actually make it an enjoyable part of your lifestyle? And that's what you've been able to do. And that's why you're seeing these results. And if you enjoy the process and it's actually more enjoyable than being overweight and out of shape, then why would you go back to being overweight and out of shape? Right? It's whereas the other way, depriving yourself and constantly feeling hungry and irritable on the low carb diet, eventually that gets to you. And it's like, it's not worth it anymore. Heck, I'd rather be fat and out of shape than suffer through the torture of low carb and irritable and hangry and all that stuff. Right. So it's all like, what do you enjoy more? So you have to create that system. Like, I actually enjoy this more than being overweight. And that's why this is sustainable versus the other approach. I mean, honestly, it wasn't sustainable for me. And I liked the look. I mean, heck, I like the look and I like being lean and everything else, but I didn't like the torture that I had to go through. Right. And I guess you can relate to that yourself.
Yeah. And it might be different if I was actually trying to get fit for a reason where, okay, I need to be in this shape to compete or this, that, or the other thing.
Mhm.
But like you say, having that deadline on it, this way, there's no deadline, there's no stress, there's no concern about it. It's just, I'm hungry, I eat, I just watch what I eat and I watch how much I eat. Move on. Done.
And it's refreshing to have this conversation because talking about diet and exercise with people, they overcomplicate. I mean, like you just made these small changes, and again, it doesn't seem like you're suffering it out like unbearable. I mean, as far as the exercise, like
No.
how long does it take you to work out? Just to throw
No.
some numbers out there.
Normally it's half an hour to an hour, maybe an hour and a half if I do some extra time on the treadmill, and that's it. I'm not spending hours doing this.
You fit it in. Like, hey, if you're feeling more energetic, heck, go for a longer workout, go for a longer hike or whatever. If you're not, do your minimum, do your little 30 minutes on the treadmill and call it a day. It's just enjoy it and let the process happen. Of course, we do have tactics in there and strategies to help build you up to that. Like I like to start off very simple and just focus on this 1% improvement each day.
Mm.
That's one of the things I always emphasize, within our coaching group. Like you're part of our VIP coaching group on Facebook. And it's always like, don't think of all or nothing and like having to overhaul everything from day one. Keto, for example, you got to cut out your carbohydrates from day one. Like that's a pretty drastic change. That's something your body doesn't want to do. But let's just make an improvement, 1% better. So if you can get 1% better today and then 1% better tomorrow, and just let those little 1% stack up. Like the alcohol consumption, you don't have to eliminate it. Let's just cut it back a little, right? If you
Mhm.
normally have 5 drinks, well, have 4. Like seriously, that could be your 1% improvement.
Yep.
If you don't normally eat breakfast and you end up overeating in the evening, well, how about we start with a healthy breakfast to just take the edge off your hunger and give you some more energy throughout the day? Like that could be your 1% improvement. And then we just build on it day by day, week by week, month by month. And then you look back like you are right now, 6 months, a year later, whatever. And it's like, holy shit, look at the transformation that just took place. But it didn't feel overwhelming in the process. It was actually an enjoyable process to go through because you're not going to this extreme testing the limits of your willpower all the time. Willpower is a finite resource. We want to save it for when we need it, right? You don't want to be burning it up every day just trying to get through your eating plan or your restrictive diet.
And the reality is doing it this way has not had the expense of a keto diet or any of the other bad diets where you're spending 10, 20, $30 a serving on stuff. because it's fancy and special, and some celebrity sells it.
Well, Steve, again, I respect you for sharing this and appreciate it. For someone who's watching this now and they're in the situation you were, that 260-pound, out of shape, really frustrated, like what would you recommend for someone like that?
There is nothing special about me. I am just an average guy working at a desk, dealing with the same crap everybody else is day in and day out. And I did it, so there's no reason anybody else can't.
Thanks for sharing that. And it's so true. It really is. And something I've come to realize getting around people at high levels, like it could be in business or athletes or anything, when you get to know somebody, it's like they're just regular people. Like they may have some great success in certain areas. Maybe they're a great musician, a great business person, great athlete, great physique, whatever. But at the core, like most of these people, they're just average folks who stuck to a system and made it work. Consistency, good enough, but good enough consistently over the long term. Yeah. It was great catching up again, Steve. And I'm so proud of your progress. I mean, you blew me away by how much progress you made. You really have. And I'm just looking forward to seeing what the future holds and just what it's going to be like now when you get up into the cabin country again, now up to your property, and just to see the difference.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to there being a lot more future than there would have been if I'd been carrying on the way I was.
Think of that. Like if you had to continue down the road of 260 plus pounds versus where you are now, like where is this going to take you in like 5 years, 10 years? Who knows? Right? I mean, that's when this stuff really compounds and makes a huge difference.
Your program has made a hell of a difference to me.
Yeah. Man, that was an inspiring conversation. I'm so proud of what Steve has been able to achieve. And like he said at the beginning, I mean, when he came on board with the Muscle After 40 blueprint, I didn't expect him to take it as serious as he did. I didn't expect to be doing this conversation with him and, 70 plus pounds later in only 6 months. I mean, again, that blew my expectations out of the water. I'm so proud of him, and I have a lot of respect for what he's been able to achieve. And the cool thing about it is it's nothing crazy. Like he's not killing himself in the gym. He's not starving himself. I mean, he still enjoys life. He still has a cheat meal from time to time. He still has a drink from time to time. Like he's making it work. He's good enough, but good enough consistently. And that's the principle. That's the whole philosophy that I have towards this, is how do you make this a healthy lifestyle where you enjoy the process, not feeling like you're restricting yourself on some crazy extreme cutting diet or killing yourself in the gym with hours on end of cardio and weight training, but having this as a healthy addition, something that you actually enjoy, something that you actually look forward to, and it's adding to your life, not taking away and distracting from your life. And that's what Steve has been able to achieve. And again, I just tip my hat to him. I mean, I'm so proud of what he's been able to achieve. Now, if you would like to make progress like Steve has and lose some body fat, build muscle, and get in your best shape, then feel free to reach out to me. You can send me an email at leeh@leehayward.com, and I'll post my email address down there, leeh@leehayward.com. And feel free to reach out to me. We can have a chat back and forth and discuss your challenges, your goals, and your situation and what it is that you want to achieve, and see if we can come up with a realistic action plan that works for you. And if I feel that you're a good fit, then I may invite you to come on board with our private VIP coaching program. And this is a small and supportive group of like-minded guys who are there to help and encourage one another towards reaching our fitness and fat loss goals. So if you'd like some help, feel free to let me know and reach out to me. And in the meantime, also check out some of the other videos that I've done. I'll post them up there at the sides. I've done other interviews like this with guys who've lost weight, built muscle, and gotten their best shape. And it's inspiring to hear real world stories like this. I mean, these aren't fitness models. They're not genetically elite guys. They're regular folks who are struggling with their health and fitness, came on board, followed a proven action plan, and now they're reaping the results. And it's so exciting to see. So again, if you would like to check those out, I'll have them linked up there, and watch those videos. And in the meantime, make sure to subscribe to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel if you haven't already done so, and stay tuned for some more videos coming soon. All right, I'll talk to you later. Take care. Over and out.